All right. What's going on, guys? Now this might be a bit of a late showing. Obviously, late in the day on Saturday, day before the Super Bowl. Figured I'd hop on and talk about this for about 15, 20 minutes, just sharing my thoughts. It really isn't a picks or anything like that type of video. I do want to say that if you do or if you are interested in using any of the PayDirt stuff that is on our site, whether you're interested in my NASCAR stuff, whether you're interested in sheets of stuff on here, anything you know that I might use or upload or whatever can be found on PayDirt. If you go ahead and use PD Welcome, you get 50% off your first month for PayDirt. I'm just kind of getting that out since, like I said, this isn't really a picks video. If you listen to any uh, video, if you read any article, whatever, talking about the Super Bowl, we pretty much have an idea of where we are going. I am going to be using SaberSim just as a visual representation on this stream, just going through different. What is it? Let me get this up. Different lineups and stuff. I think that this. Uh, I think that this Super Bowl is probably one of, if not the most difficult one that I have seen, because let's just go. I want to sort these by. I can't really sort them by. Let me go uniques actually here, just so we can see. So obviously this is just using, or I'm looking at Goldie's projection stuff right now. Why is this Super Bowl so difficult? Well, first and foremost, JSN has such a drastic, you know, output compared to the rest of the field. It is very likely that JSN is going to have the most fantasy points out of anybody on this slate, right? When we're looking at the contests that are on DraftKings, we have just huge, massive contests today. And if we're looking at a sense of, realistically, we're probably going to have anywhere between, 20 to 29% of all lineups in any contest, if not slightly higher, and probably smaller contests, going to have JSN as the captain there. And we quickly run into a situation. If we just look at these JSN lines, now yet again, I I haven't entered anything yet. I don't know what I'm entering and stuff. This is a day before, just kind of talking through stuff. Luckily, we're not waiting for any late breaking news or anything for this event. But when we're looking at these lineups and stuff, and we're noticing how closely everybody's scoring, like there's going to be tons of JSN lines that are going to be competing to just have the top of the contest pretty much locked down. you know so and I'm speaking more so from a sense of, if I'm playing a single entry lineup, if I'm playing, which I'm probably going to do that this year. I don't think I'm going to be entering any of the big major contests. I mean, you have, all eyes on this game. It's very unlikely that you're going to have lineups that aren't duplicated unless this goes completely off the rails to where it's like a very defensive centered game, which prop markets are kind of leaning towards, that there seems to be, or a good case for a defensive touchdown or a special teams touchdown in this Super Bowl more than normal. The total right now is 46, 47 or whatever. But you're looking at these contests, the main 260,000 people, with $3 is 317, 5 is 118, 10 is 58,000, a 5 is 25,000. I think the only fair contests to play today are single entry contests that are probably under 5,000 people and stuff. So that means that you're either playing every $12 that pops up, or you're playing a lot of these $150 contests and stuff, right? You have the 100 at 2,000, 100 at 1,100, 100 at 55, a 150 at 2,900. These are the contests that are that I would recommend playing versus the absolute just dupe fest that we're seeing on the bigger contests. Now, with that said, we're looking at JSN as by and far the best captain from a point per dollar standpoint, from a production standpoint, from anything, right? So when I'm looking at how I want to approach this contest, I'm speaking more from those, high dollar single entry contests and stuff. And I think we're going to see an increase of JSN being a captain, probably, 25, 29, if not 30% of those lineups having him as the captain here. So what is the more reasonable way to get different here? Okay. When we're looking at projected ownership in the captain position, it goes JSN, Walker, Drake May, Stevenson, and Darnold. It's very unlikely that Darnold outscores anybody on his offense, right? I think Walker and I think JSN are going to outscore him in most situations. And so I think Darnold is a pretty terrible quarterback to get different on. Now Drake May is played pretty terrible. Okay. I think his rushing upside is going to go up naturally based on, the speed of the Super Bowl and stuff, but I really hate playing quarterbacks as captains. For those that may have not watched my stuff before in True DFS, typically on showdowns, I only play pass catchers as captains, just because they have the highest ceiling, and their ownership is usually pretty, it's not outrageously stupid, and you're getting away from running backs and quarterbacks as a captain, which is why JSN is the best captain there literally could be for a game like this. I think I just think he's going to be the highest score. It's just that, do I want to use him as a captain or not? When I then look at the rest of the players that are available here, I really don't have faith in Hollins to outscore or be near JSN. When we're looking at, at the end of this game, let's just say this is what, regular projections are looking at. I don't see Hollins really doing much. Obviously, you can get everybody in your lineup, but Matt Holland lineups seem to be very heavily duplicated. If we're looking at these Holland lineups, right? That's my bad. Excuse me. That is in flex. We're looking at Holland's lineups, right? Like, there's really no reason. Also, yet again, the baseline projection we were looking at with JSN are 88. We're at 83, 89 here, 89 points here, 84 for Hollins. Like this, like this, every decent lineup is going to be played tomorrow. Which, yet again, play the smaller fields, because then you don't have to get insanely crazy to have a decent shot at something. If you're playing the big ones, you should absolutely just be playing like defense as captains. I really do think that a low-scoring defensive-heavy game is actually going to be underplayed in the big contests and stuff. I just don't see the risk or the reason to take that risk in single entry stuff. As I continue to look through, I think the most realistic captains that are going to give you a chance that aren't like entirely stupid is playing for New England to be competitive or slightly behind in this contest, and Drake May actually performing pretty decently. And I think through that, it's probably Hunter Henry and Stephon Diggs as like the two captains that I would realistically see myself getting to. Now, I don't have I don't have a dog in any fight for DFS. I don't really care. I think the Seahawks win this game. But just from a building perspective, like, I just think that using Diggs and Henry, I mean, you could kind of argue they're the mid-range, whatever, 86, 7,000. But if you play Henry, you get JSN. I really don't want to play Darnold just for I like the upside of May. I like the fact that he's going to be behind. Typically, I want a quarterback who is behind in my stuff. You go Hunter Henry, JSN, in May. As I can go over here. You could, I mean, easily you can change this lineup from that 48-9 that you see on the screen. But I just think this type of build, yet again, I mean, we're looking at baseline projections for lineups around 88, 89, 90 points stuff. Let's see if we're anywhere near that. 83 here, 82, 82, 81, 86 over here. I mean, which isn't bad here. You got Walker, JSN, second, both running backs from Seattle and stuff with Drake May. With a defense that I actually like. This is just not a fun Super Bowl to build for, honestly. I think most people should, or most players, whatever. I think you just lock JSN in your flex or captain. I mean, those are the two approaches here. You go 100% on JSN and the captain and try and just nail the optimal lineup that comes from him, or you do your best, hope that he just finishes with 18, 17 points. I mean, he's probably not going to. Like, this is just not a fun Super Bowl here. Because he's just so expensive. He was putting you in such a tough situation here. I've kind of gone back and forth, looking at this stuff kind of throughout the day and just kind of listening to stuff. I just think Hunter Henry and Stephon Diggs gives you a realistic upside to try and compete, and I think I'm gonna lean building towards the Patriots from a DFS perspective. I think the Seahawks win. I think they're the better team and everything, but from a DFS perspective, I think you need to root for the Patriots and probably build more Patriot heavy, just because I don't think they're going to do that. When we're looking at, I want to see these stacks really fast here. This is a tough one. Probably more in video, just share my thoughts and stuff. But this is what DFS looks like. I did this the whole year at True DFS on most of the showdown stuff and just talked myself through kind of my reasoning and stuff. I like Diggs. I like Henry. I think I like Henry the most. If I was going to play multiple lineups in a contest, I would probably have Henry, JSN, and then Diggs as my preferred captains. So I think I'm probably going to end up using Hunter Henry tomorrow as my captain. I think I'm going to be rooting for the Patriots here. Especially now, I don't like to box score much, but New England their offense has been horrendous the last two games, and Hunter Henry's production has been absolutely horrendous too. Only 3.2 and 1.5 in the last two games. I think I really don't factor that in normal slates, but when you have so many casual people going to be building lineups for this and just entering DFS for this, if they see that somebody has been on a pretty cold streak, I think, in situations like this that you try and take advantage of that. I just think Diggs and Henry are the two guys that you probably want to use here. Let me see what else is going on here. If there's anything else, any questions or anything, I just don't think there are. Anyway, I appreciate some of you guys being here and sitting here and stuff. DFS is pretty boring once you get into it. My main thing is, like, if we're looking at lineups like this, which I probably need to let me increase this really fast. Just look at more lineups here. Look at the top 3,000 lineups. Actually, let's do that And let's just look at these top guys really fast. Let's I'm gonna use Henry here. I'm gonna use Walker. I want to see where these lineups kind of stack against each other here, because I think this is what you're. At least if I'm looking at Hunter Henry versus JSN and Kenneth Walker lineups, I want to see where kind of everything shakes out here. I'm not running any contest sims. We're just strictly looking at how lineups are kind of faring against each other here. And why do I do this for those that might be new here? I like to just have an idea of what the field is going to play, or what lineups are specifically, what am I playing against here? How likely is it that and I'm moving forward assuming that I'm using Hunter Henry. What do my Hunter Henry lineups look like, and what are the best Hunter Henry lineups looking at versus the middle tier JSN lineups, right? Because if I'm playing the best Hunter Henry lineups I have, do those even have a chance to even compete against the median JSN lineup and stuff like that? So what I'm doing here is I'm going to be looking at the Hunter Henry lineups, kind of seeing the builds, kind of seeing the flex exposure rates and stuff like that, especially because this is going to be against probably the two best captains that the fielder is going to be running into, which yet again is very Seahawk heavy. I think playing the Patriots side of this game and lean into the Patriots is probably the safest way to get contrarian on this game. And secondly, man, my other thought is, let me look at what this ownership is for Darnold. I think you can afford to not play Darnold. I really think I'd rather have Hunter Henry, Drake May, Jason, and potentially another expensive guy or whatever versus having Darnold in this thing here. Looking at top 3,500, we don't need this to go all the way to 5 because I'm not even using these lineups. I just want to visually see what we're looking at here. Do I have? I don't. Okay. All right, so like roughly, we're looking at, obviously Hunter Henry's not being used, right? That's fine. So let's see how this actually. Let's look at these JSN lines and where the ownership is for the flex positions. We have 49, 40. Drake May, Darnold, Walker, Ramondre Myers. Okay. JSN, Drake May, Stevenson, Sam Darnold, Cooper Kupp, Myers. Okay, so it seems like Myers is going to be popular regardless of kind of the build. Okay, let's see where this kind of goes in at now that we're able to pay up for people. So obviously JSN a lot, Kenneth Walker, Drake May, Stevenson a lot, Darnold here. So let's see what these kind of lineups look like. What are the 1v1s that we're dealing with here? 86.2, 86.5. Mario Douglas, jeez. This is actually this is a cool one. I like this one here. Pretty heavy on the passing offense of New England. 85 yet again. We're looking to try and at least be within like 5 to 6 points of the 89s, 90s that we're seeing from Jason and Walker. Not contest lineups and stuff. Jake Bobo, not too bad. We're looking pretty horrible. This doesn't seem like, it doesn't really matter what the 2v2 is. It's looking pretty atrocious across the board. If you go more balanced between the guys, you get stuff like this. If you go very heavy, you know, and chase a 5K guy, then you're stuck with Bobo or another $1,000 guy or whatever. This is an unfun Super Bowl to build for. So what 1v1s are we looking at with like JSN, right? Probably using Darnold. Actually, we'll just look at the exposure here. So this one in both quarterbacks. I think if I was playing JSN, I don't think I would have both quarterbacks just because they're so damn expensive. George is looking like he's in a lot of them. So yet again, back at a much higher projection here. One thing you aren't seeing is Hunter Henry in like any of this stuff. Even if I take, where's Henry with JSN actually? So Henry is only with, these top 18, 19% of lineups. But where are these lineups going with Hunter Henry? Interesting. I like this lineup. I like this lineup. Obviously, we're trying to figure out what I want to use in a single entry. And the duality here, the duality of man is, JSN or literally anybody other or any other captain. But then you get stuff like this, right? Like, I mean, it's a Patriots onslaught over here. That's not too crazy. I think I'm using Henry, man. I think I'm just going to try and not completely just throw away the contest. I think a big thing people are having trouble is separating the Super Bowl with the actual contest. If I treat this like any stupid Thursday night game, right? I'm probably playing JSN and then just 1v1ing down the line, right? But it's Super Bowl, and that's gonna make ownership funky, regardless of what we're doing, right? Just not a fun slate, man. We covered like 50 something showdown contests, and I think this is like by far the worst one this whole year. This is just an unfun slate. I don't know if you want the picks. I think these are the three best captains. For single entry, I like Hunter Henry and trying to jam in as many of the expensive guys as possible. If you're entering 20 max, whatever, I think you just play JSN and Kenneth Walker. I think those are literally the two directions you go for in this game. I just don't think there's anything else. I don't really have an opinion on like any value guy at all. Sometimes I do. I just don't have one here today. Patriot defense. I don't know. Like I'm interested in like playing into a defense here because Patriots are just not owned, right? Like nobody is playing the Patriot defense, and what does that look like here? They're 4,000, dude. Like, yeah, keep yawning. Jeez. Like I said, sorry if this is a boring video. It's just kind of what I go through when I'm looking at lineups and stuff. I like Hunter Henry, JSN, Drake May, and Patriots, and then trying to figure out what other two guys I want to use. I think personally that's how I'm going to approach the Super Bowl. I think I spent the last 2 years like purposely fading. I think I faded McCaffrey in the 49er game 2 years ago. I have no idea what I did last year, but I just usually never play the chalk on the Super Bowl just to try and get contrarian, and I think I'm going to stand by that and do that. Anyway, whatever. Super Bowl thoughts. These are my thoughts. Not here to give picks or a core or anything. Literally just talking through. Yeah. Oh, see you guys for NASCAR this week. That's what I'm more excited for. Thanks for being here. Bye bye. Oh man, what did I hit there? Bye bye.